The actors who Ernest Borgnine despises the most are named. Born Ernest Borgnine on January 24, 1917, in Hamden, Connecticut, Ernest Borgnine became one of the most iconic, multi-talented, and adored actors in Hollywood history. Borgnine was born into a working-class family in Italy and learned early on the importance of discipline, perseverance, and hard labor. His mother brought him to Italy for a short while when his parents split up when he was a kid, but they eventually returned to America. The ethnic diversity and profound insight into adversity and persistence that young Borgnine gained on his transatlantic journey informed his subsequent cinematic appearances. Even before he became an actor, Borgnine had a colorful existence, just like the characters he would play. He entered the United States Navy at the age of 18 and served with honor for more than 10 years, including during WWI. His time in the military made him a more disciplined, loyal, and sociable individual. Borgnine frequently went on record as saying that his stint in the Navy had given him focus and purpose in life. He maintained strong ties to the military even after he became a Hollywood star, making frequent appearances at Navy activities, veteran meetings, and supporting charities that paid tribute to veterans. Following his release, Borgnine set out to find a fresh start. Despite his lack of training, his mother insisted that he take acting classes since she thought he had a talent for public speaking. A curiosity that started out as a cautious investigation soon blossomed into a deep love. Before he made it big on Broadway and later in Hollywood, he refined his craft in the theater, notably with his work at Virginia's Barter Theater. He was frequently cast as a villain or roughneck in his early career, thanks to his rugged, muscular physique and unique gap-toothed smile. Nonetheless, Borgnine demonstrated that his abilities extended far beyond his typecasting roles. His breakout role was in the 1955 small-budget drama Marty, which followed a lonely butcher from the Bronx as he sought love and self-worth. Oscar voters and reviewers alike were moved by Borgnine's sincere, unglamorous, and profoundly human performance, which landed him the top acting honor. That scene solidified his position in film history, elevating him from dependable supporting actor to charismatic leading man whose performances could touch millions. Borgnine showed an incredible capacity to switch between genres and mediums over his lengthy career. He was in a number of violent films, including From Here to Eternity 1953, The Wild Bunch 1969, and The Dirty Dozen 1967. Among others. In the 1960s, he became famous on television thanks to the comedy series McHale's Navy, in which he played the charming and naughty Lieutenant Commander Quentin McHale, winning over viewers of all ages. Later in life, he became famous to a younger demographic when he portrayed the character Mermaid Man on SpongeBob SquarePants, thanks to his unusual booming voice. In spite of his achievements, Borgnine maintained his humility, friendliness, and generosity. Famous for his infectious laughter and mischievous smile, he refused to let his fame separate him from regular people. He was always happy to meet admirers, sign autographs, and tell tales about his eclectic career. On set, he was known for being both a polished professional and an encouraging presence, qualities that his co-workers often lauded. Like his illustrious career, Ernest Borgnine's private life was full of color and drama, along with his several marriages, which were among the most discussed parts of his life. Borgnine had 5 marriages throughout his life, each of which mirrored a new phase in his development as a person and an artist. In 1949, not long after he came back from a decade of active duty in the United States Navy during both World Wars, he tied the knot for the first time. He met Rhoda Kemmons while serving in the Navy. She was enchanted by his affable nature and encouraged him, as he made the early shift from a disciplined sailor to a man pursuing a civilian career. Nancy was born to them on May 28, 1952, and they were married for nearly 10 years from 1949 until 1958. Borgnine frequently remarked that, despite the instability that occasionally accompanied his personal relationships, family was one of the most stabilizing influences in his life, and becoming a father was a significant point in his life. Unfortunately, the marriage started to suffer in the 1950s, when Borgnine's acting career started to soar, due to the demands of Hollywood stardom and being away from home. In the end, they decided to divorce. Despite Borgnine's continued commitment to his duty as Nancy's father, he entered the glamorous world of international film with his second marriage. Katy Jurado, a celebrated Mexican actress who had established herself as a powerful and passionate performer in Mexican and Hollywood cinema, was his wife in 1959. Their romance was fiery and emotional, and they were a stunning couple that everyone loved for all the charisma and talent they brought to the table. The intensity that drew them together in the first place was also the source of their tension. They were both very independent people with busy jobs, and Borgnine spoke up about how they frequently fought over issues related to their work and their personal lives. After 4 troubled years of marriage, they finally divorced in 1963. Although they were no longer together, Borgnine talked fondly of Jurado in later years, praising her as an outstanding actress and a lady who had left an imprint on him. Nonetheless, Borgnine's third marriage turned out to be a notorious part of his life narrative. Borgnine wed the famed singer and actress Ethel Merman in 1964. The only thing bigger than Merman was Borgnine's own rambunctious personality. Due to their respective fiery temperaments, independence of thought, and outspoken personalities, the union was doomed to fail from the beginning. Their marriage was one of the shortest in Hollywood history, lasting only 42 days, which became renowned. When Merman wrote her autobiography, she famously left a whole page blank under the chapter about her marriage to Borgnine. This was her way of making a subtle but incisive statement about how painful and tumultuous the breakup was. Tim Conway, a lifelong friend of Borgnine's and his comedy partner, provided a later explanation for the tragedy that was both funny and moving. A lot can happen to Ernie. That much is certain, and Ethel was a very powerful woman. Something had to go off when you dropped 2 bombs in the same room, and I suppose that was the case. The comment aptly described the tumultuous dynamic between the 2 entertainment heavyweights whose egos could not possibly reside in the same building. Borgnine wed for the 4th time in 1965 to Donna Rancourt, following the public spectacle of his short marriage to Merman, with 3 children born of their extended relationship, which lasted until 1972. Borgnine's role as a father was further cemented. Sharon, their daughter, was born on August 5, 1965, marking their first child. Christopher, a boy, was born to them on August 9, 1969, 4 years after they were married. Diana, their second daughter, was born on December 29, 1970, and their family expanded once again. Despite the ups and downs of his marriages, Borgnine always spoke fondly of the happiness his children offered him as a father to a large family. Nevertheless, in 1972, the marriage to Rancourt also ended, despite the strong familial ties. Borgnine is now back on his own and looking for a long-term partner, but Borgnine found lasting stability and satisfaction in his 6th marriage. Tove Tresnes, a businesswoman of Norwegian descent, became his life companion and unwavering advocate in his latter years of employment after they were married on February 24, 1973. Borgnine found the stability and serenity that had evaded him in his previous relationships with Tove, who went on to become a successful cosmetics entrepreneur with her Tova brand. Their marriage, which was unprecedented in Hollywood at the time, lasted for nearly 4 decades and was solid until Borgnine passed away in 2012. When Borgnine met Tove, his friends and co-workers frequently said that he had finally found a partner who could keep up with him energetically while simultaneously calming his impulsiveness with empathy and understanding. She was there for Borgnine in his latter years, providing him with love, stability, and company. Their marriage is frequently considered the rock upon which Borgnine's life rested. Ernest Borgnine was known for his forthright, no-nonsense demeanor and his ability to switch gears between roles during his lengthy and eventful career in Hollywood. When it came to discussing his fellow actors and actresses, he was the type of guy who would say what was on his mind without fear of repercussions. While Borgnine was not hesitant to admit when he couldn't tolerate someone, he did create strong and enduring connections with some of the hundreds of actors he worked with over the course of 60 years. He would sometimes bring up the names of performers he had a strained relationship with, or even outright said he despised working with in interviews and chats throughout the years. Among the most infamous instances was his intense distaste for Frank Sinatra. In the 1950s, when Sinatra was shifting from a singer to a more serious dramatic performer, Borgnine and Sinatra first crossed paths. Borgnine acknowledged Sinatra's fame and singing ability, but he frequently bemoaned Sinatra's haughtiness and callousness toward his other artists. Borgnine repeatedly mentioned how Sinatra exuded an air of arrogant superiority while working, frequently belittling supporting actors and crew members. This sort of behavior was untenable for Borgnine, who had climbed the ladder of success via stage and character roles. He made the insinuating comment that Sinatra believed he was superior to everyone else, which I found revolting. Sinatra was one of the most unpleasant guys Borgnine had ever worked with, and their hostility persisted for years, despite their infrequent encounters in Hollywood social circles. Borgnine never warmed up to Sinatra. An individual that Borgnine mentioned with an unexpected amount of hostility was John Wayne, a great American film star. Although Borgnine respected Wayne for his role as a cinematic symbol of masculinity, their personalities clashed when they weren't on set. Wayne, in Borgnine's opinion, was a tyrant who was frequently condescending toward performers he viewed as beneath him. Borgnine characterized working with Wayne as a delicate balancing act, despite the fact that they never engaged in physical conflict. Given that, Wayne was the type of actor who couldn't help but steal the show whenever he was in public. Compared to Borgnine's far more humble and cooperative style of filmmaking, Wayne's inflated sense of self-importance was irritating. Borgnine never forgot the times Wayne insulted directors or treated supporting actors badly, even if he acknowledged that Wayne could be charming at times. An unpleasant aftertaste lingered. Plus, Borgnine came clean about his distaste for Wayne in his later years. Though his animosity toward Dean Martin was not nearly as poisonous as that toward Frank Sinatra, Borgnine did not conceal the fact that he despised Sinatra's rat-packed sidekick. Borgnine said that Martin never truly committed to acting, and that he relied too much on his charisma and laid-back public image. Borgnine, who took great satisfaction in his meticulous preparation for every role, came across as careless and unconcerned, prioritizing his time at parties over honing his acting chops. His dismissal of Martin as someone who never took anything seriously, including the work, irritated me at the time. Borgnine later acknowledged that his feuds with certain actors were partially due to amicable personality differences. But even as they both aged, his distaste for Sinatra never wavered. Borgnine laughed, but didn't think twice when asked late in an interview who among his fellow performers he despised. This much, I will tell you. Some individuals in this field had the arrogance to believe they were royalty. Among them was Frank Sinatra, who I had no interest in. Never, ever, ever. Borgnine was not just critical of famous people, but also of certain TV actors whom he felt were too haughty or rude to veteran performers. Although he did not always let the public know who they were, sources close to Borgnine said that he frequently took a dim view of younger stars who, in his opinion, had not put in the necessary work yet pretended to know everything. Performers who were unprofessional toward crew personnel were especially obnoxious to him, because Borgnine himself always appreciated the unsung heroes who worked behind the scenes to make shows happen. Borgnine was just as forthright about the performers he admired and adored, despite his distaste for them. Spencer Tracy, Bette Davis, and Tim Conway, who he admired for being both courteous and professional, were among the persons he spoke highly of. Because of this difference, Borgnine's critiques stood out the more. He never acted enviously or insecurely when he stated he despised someone. Rather, his animosity stemmed from a real dislike of haughtiness, lack of professionalism, or brutality on set. The fact that Ernest Borgnine was so forthright about his distaste for certain actors contributed to his legendary status. Borgnine was surprisingly forthright about his feuds with other Hollywood stars, in contrast to many of her peers. The unflinching honesty of a guy whose career was built on honesty was shown by his readiness to mention names, particularly legendary figures like John Wayne and Frank Sinatra. Though he had strained relationships with others, Borgnine's forthrightness about his dislikes enriched the life of a legendary Hollywood star. Up until 1962, Borgnine smoked a lot. The 91-year-old Borgnine murmured into a live mic and said, "I masturbate a lot." When asked by Fox News morning host Steve Doocy in November 2008 what the secret was to his longevity, Borgnine passed away on July 8, 2012, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center from renal failure. He was 95 years old, just days before his surgery, which took place a month before he passed away. He had a checkup at the hospital. After his death, he was given a military funeral and cremated.